Part 144. Blessed to have each other in this life, Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Liao. Chapter 1441. Huh? Are you leaving? Although she said this, she didn't intend to move, and she still sat firmly on the sofa. Ruan's father and Ruan's mother hated and angry with this daughter, and their heart ached. If it weren't for Ruan Zixuan's capriciousness, Ruan Zimo would have married in as a young mistress by now, and the Ruan family could follow the tide, and things would not have developed to this point. I don't want to leave, Ruan Zixuan said, the house here is big and delicious. I want to live here. When Ruan's father heard this, his face turned blue and red, and he wished he could slap her to death. Because it is difficult to be violent in someone else's house, I can only suppress my anger and call her name in an extremely low voice, Zixuan. Ruan Zixuan ignored him, and looked straight at Gu Liang. I'll help you heal your arm, and you let me stay here, okay? Gu Liang raised his eyebrows slightly. This was inexplicable, except for Gu Liang, everyone else was puzzled. Ruan's father thought his daughter had hysteria and was talking nonsense, so he winked nervously at Mrs. Ruan, telling her to take her daughter away. Gu Liang, who had been silent all this time, opened his mouth at this moment. Come with me. He got up calmly and took Ruan Zixuan upstairs, but Gu's mother became worried. Remembering that Gu Liang always wore long-sleeved clothes no matter how hot it was, and she always wore gloves on her right hand, she couldn't help turning her head and asking, "Son, what's wrong with your arm?" "It's okay," Gu Liang waved his hand, "I'll excuse you for a moment, Mom, entertain my uncle and aunt for me." The figures of the two disappeared at the corner of the stairs, and the rest of them looked at each other in blank dismay. They came here today to discuss the marriage. Now that the protagonist is not here, they don't know what else to talk about. In embarrassment, Gu Liang went downstairs. It took no more than 2 minutes before and after, and I really only missed a moment. Father Ruan and Mrs. Ruan stretched their necks to look for a long time, but they didn't see Ruan Zixuan. Looking at Gu Liang's gentle and calm face, Father Ruan couldn't help asking cautiously, "Young Master Gu, my Zixuan. Call me Gu Liang, since the wedding ceremony has already been held, Uncle doesn't need to see outsiders like this." Gu Liang smiled lightly. Although the smile is shallow, it can be regarded as kind and friendly. Father Ruan was pondering the meaning behind his words, and heard him say, "It's just a bit troublesome now. The person I'm going to marry is Zixuan, but everyone outside knows that the Ruan family is going to marry Zimo. Can you see if this works? Let Zixuan marry in instead of Zimo, and the young mistress of the Gu family is still Ruan Zimo, so we can reduce the loss in terms of reputation." After hearing this, Mrs. Ruan was surprised and said, "But if this is the case, wouldn't my Zimo?" "We have no objection, let's do it this way." Before he finished speaking, Father Ruan had already agreed. Mrs. Ruan's eyes widened, and she wanted to say something, but Ruan's father clenched her wrist suggestively. "I'm sorry to bother you today. I still have a lot of work to do at home. Let me take my leave first." "Zixuan. I'll take her back in 2 days." Gu Liang smiled. "Go home 3 times, I understand." Father Ruan gave him a deep look, said nothing, and dragged his wife away. After leaving Gu's house, the couple got into the car, and Mrs. Ruan finally burst into tears. "How can you promise him? Do you want Zimo to be buried under Zixuan's name? In the underworld, if the name doesn't match, he will become a lonely ghost and can't give birth. Otherwise, what do you want me to do? My sister married in the front, and my sister married in the back. How will people outside talk about us? Even if we are not afraid of being talked about, can the Gu family agree?" Ruan's father said helplessly, "That's the Gu family, who cares? Can you afford it?" Mrs. Ruan also understood that it was too late to say anything now, but just thinking of her daughter, she covered her face and cried bitterly. Father Ruan let out a long sigh, and said, "Don't cry, the two of them look so alike, Lord Yan may not recognize them. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again." Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1442. After the Ruan family's parents left, Gu's mother was in a hurry. "You really want to marry her?" Gu Liang nodded. "The wedding has already been held, so many guests have witnessed it with their own eyes, so of course they want to marry." "But she killed someone before." Mother Gu's face was extremely ugly. "It was manslaughter." Gu Liang smiled and comforted his mother. "Tong Wu saw it. It was her sister who took the knife to cut through the wedding dress. She just wanted to stop her sister. The knife has no eyes. No one thought that would happen." Seeing her son acting as if nothing had happened, Gu's mother felt as if she had punched cotton in her heart, and persuaded, "Didn't you listen to what her father said? She ran to the cemetery crazy at night. Maybe it was I was frightened and stupid, and my brain went wrong. How can this kind of woman give birth to you in the future? It doesn't matter if you're scared and stupid, don't they say that great wisdom is like stupidity, and I don't dare to marry someone who is too smart," Gu Liang said with a smile. No matter what Gu's mother said, Gu Liang would say something. The Gu family has never had a woman talk, and Gu's mother has been used to being a mistress for Master Gu for many years, so that even if she pretends to be a mother or mother-in-law, she will die before she can say a few words to her son. She waved her hand and sighed, "Oh, you can do whatever you want, anyway, pay more attention, and don't let her make any more embarrassing things." After finishing speaking, she couldn't help muttering in a low voice, "Stealing my sister's name and marrying someone, this kind of woman is really—" Gu Liang smiled and said, "Mom, I'll go up first." "Hey! You haven't mentioned your arm." As if Gu Liang had never heard of it, he had already gone upstairs. "It's interesting. There are so many wizards at home and abroad, but they are all at a loss, but the newlywed wife can see that there is something wrong with his arm through the clothes." When Gu Liang returned to the room, Ruan Zixuan was sitting cross-legged on the bed watching TV, to be precise, watching cartoons. And with a serious look on his face. "Ruan Zixuan," Gu Liang called her, but she didn't respond. Gu Liang took 2 steps closer, sat down by the bed, glanced at the LCD TV, and My Little Pony was playing. He picked up the remote control and pressed pause, and called her again, "Ruan Zixuan." She froze for a moment, then turned her head to look at him with a dazed expression. The corners of Gu Liang's lips were slightly raised, and there seemed to be a slight smile. "Have you forgotten what you said?" She reacted and frowned. "Don't call me that in the future, I can't remember the name." Gu Liang's eyes became more playful. "Getting into character so quickly? What do you want me to call you?" "Ruanzimo." "Tang Tang." She paused for a moment, and then her tone became inexplicably more serious. "Call me Tang Tang from now on." "Tang Tang is your nickname?" Gu Liang asked her. "The name is divided into big and small." She was impatient, her tone was arrogant, and she said in a fit of anger, "Anyway, I don't care about anything else except this name." Gu Liang smiled. No one dared to talk to him like that, including his ex-girlfriends. It was a kind of enjoyment to act like a baby occasionally, but it was a bit annoying to play with one's temper and temper. He is a man who pays attention to fun and quality of life. Whoever spoils his mood and loses his appetite, he will not embarrass others in person, but he will never give the other party a chance to appear in front of him again. What Murong Cheng dislikes the most is this aspect of him. He is obviously a cruel and ruthless person, but he wants to put on a refined and friendly skin. Murong Cheng always scolded him, "Hypocrite." This is actually an objective evaluation. What should I do now? If I want something from others, I naturally have to put down my figure. Gu Liang adjusted his posture, leaned back, and asked Tang Tang, "Do you know what is on my arm?" "Do not know." Then you know how to cure it? Tang Tang picked up the remote control, covered the logo and asked him, do you know what brand it is? Gu Liang didn't know, he had never paid attention to the brand of electrical appliances at home. But it doesn't affect you pressing it. Tang Tang pressed the play button. My Little Pony started playing happily again. Gu Liang was silent for a while, and asked, when will you treat me? Tang Tang watched the animation intently, with the back of her head turned towards him. Wait until I finish this episode. Gu Liang. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Blessed to have each other in this life. Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1443. On Gu Liang's first day of marriage, the bride died, and the bride's copy was sent to the hospital. On the second day of the wedding, the copy became the bride, and then sat on the large wedding bed and watched My Little Pony all night. The third day was the homecoming day. Gu Liang went to Ruan's house alone, but the bride didn't go because she watched cartoons all night and couldn't get up in the morning. In fact, not many people pay attention to returning home during the Three Dynasties, but this time the situation is special. It is not so much returning home as attending Ruan Zixuan's funeral. Yes, the person in the coffin was my sister Ruan Zimo, but she was buried in the name of my sister Ruan Zixuan. As the new son-in-law, Gu Liang, no matter how arrogant he usually is, this bit of dignity must be given to the Yu family. It's just that when he explained that Ruan Zimo was unwell, so he couldn't come with him, the surrounding guests cast all kinds of ambiguous gazes. Gu Liang. He really looked up to him. He wouldn't be able to enjoy the joy of fish and water with one of the sisters after they killed each other. This kind of thing is too particular about the atmosphere. After attending the funeral, Gu Liang turned to the company and made a call on the way to ask his subordinates to check Ruan Zixuan's personal situation, the more detailed the better. Just as he was giving orders, another call came in. It was from Gu Yan. Gu Liang switched the call line and asked, what's the matter? Gu Yan's voice revealed nervousness. Brother, come back quickly. Gu Liang frowned. What's wrong? My sister-in-law made my mother cry. Gu Liang was stunned for a moment before realizing who Gu Yan was referring to as his sister-in-law. He couldn't help frowning even deeper, and asked, what's going on? Gu Yan stammered, anyway, come back soon, I can't handle it. In the second half of the voice, Gu Liang heard his mother crying on the phone and asked, what did your brother say? When will he come back? Gu Yan comforted, come back, come back. I'll be back right away. Mom, don't cry, sister-in-law, you should calm down too. After hanging up the phone, Gu Liang held his forehead in silence. What the hell did he marry? After Gu Liang came home, as soon as he entered the living room, he saw Gu's mother sitting on the sofa with red eyes. Gu Yan was coaxing beside his mother in a low voice, while Ruan Zixuan was sitting on the other side of the sofa, with his hands crossed on his chest, also looking swollen. Probably seeing the backer, Gu's mother burst into tears again, and cried to Gu Liang, I said yesterday that this woman cannot be married. Take a look at what she looks like. Ah. Gu Liang asked, don't worry, why did Zixuan make you angry? You let her speak for herself. Mother Gu was furious. Gu Liang looked at Tang Tang. Tang Tang turned her face away, and let out a soft hum from her nose. Mother Gu became even more angry, and pointed at Ruan Zixuan, look at her. What kind of attitude is this? Whose daughter-in-law is as unruly as her? Hey! Old lady! Have you scolded enough? Tang Tang stood up furiously, and glared angrily, I've been scolding me since I was eating. I've put up with you for a long time. Mother Gu cried, did you hear that? Did you all hear that? Gu Liang, she was so mean to me when you were not at home. Call me an old woman. Ruan Zixuan Guliang's face darkened. Apologize. Tang Tang bit her lip and looked at them bitterly. You are not good people, you don't like me. I don't like you either. I won't live here anymore. After speaking, he strode out without even wearing shoes. Ruan Zixuan, Guliang grabbed her arm. I told you before, my name is Tang Tang. It's Tang Tang, she was furious, struggled a few times but failed to break free from Guliang's shackles, and cursed, you will die without me. It will suck your internal organs dry. 6 internal organs. Drain your brain. Drain every drop of your blood. You will die ugly. Super invincible and ugly. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1444. Mother Gu almost fainted, trembling with anger. What are you talking about? How dare you curse my son? How can you be so vicious, woman? Get out of here. Our Gu family doesn't have a daughter-in-law like you. Tang Tang said loudly, aren't you vicious? You saw that woman tripped by someone, she didn't make a sound to stop her, and she didn't call an ambulance. In the end, the fetus was aborted. When the old man asked you, you pretended not to know, I just want to protect myself. Mother Gu's eyes widened in shock, how did you know about the eldest lady? Turning to look at Gu Yan next to him, he suddenly slapped him hard. Did you tell her? Only you and I were there, Xiao Yan. Why did you turn your elbows out? Being a mother doesn't have much strength, but Gu Yan was completely unprepared, and was still slapped in the eye with gold stars. It's none of my business, Gu Yan covered his face anxiously. Tang Tang pointed at Gu Yan and said, you're disgusting too. You play with men in the car, and you give him a car after you play. Disgusting. Gu Yan stared at Tang Tang in astonishment, how do you know? Subconsciously went to see Gu Liang, and questioned inconceivably, brother. You are going too far. Send someone to follow me and tell my sister-in-law about this. Mother Gu's face turned pale with anger, and she slapped her backhand again. It landed on Gu Yan's face with a slap. I blame your brother for doing something wrong. Are you shameless? I said, why didn't you drive that Maserati? It turned out to be a gift. Playing with a man. Are you a psychopath? Are you a psychopath? Mom. Can you stop talking like a pervert? Gu Yan said angrily, what's wrong with me playing with men? I'm happy. I'm fraternal. Can you respect my way of life? Gu's mother cried loudly, you are shameless. I don't have a son like you. You don't have my son in your eyes. Only your eldest brother is your son. The whole house was in chaos. Gu Liang couldn't bear it and shouted coldly, shut up. Mother Gu. Gu Yan. Gu Liang pointed to the sofa and said to Tang Tang, you go back and sit down. Tang Tang looked left and right, crawled back automatically, sat cross-legged, took a peach from the coffee table, and looked at them while nibbling. Gu Liang felt that she was not obedient, but wanted to watch the excitement. The living room returned to silence, only the soft sobbing of Gu's mother. Gu Liang calmed down a little, and asked, Mom, why did you come here today? The villa here is a new residence that Gu Liang prepared for his marriage. He didn't want to be found with that thing on his arm, so he didn't plan to live with his mother and younger brother. The servants also chose the tight-spoken ones. Gu's mother wiped her tears, and replied in a low voice, I'm just worried, so I asked Xiao Yan to come and have a look. Have you finished watching now? Gu Liang asked. Mother Gu was taken aback for a moment, then cast her eyes at Tang Tang. Go back and rest after reading it. Gu Liang continued, I will talk to Zixuan about today's matter. You are old and it is hard to run at both ends. Don't come here again. If you have anything to say, Zixuan and I Xian will go back to see you. He said this calmly, without a trace of anger, with good manners, and at the same time, he did not give any room for negotiation. Mother Gu lowered her head embarrassingly. Gu Liang looked at his younger brother. Gu Yan, take mom back. Oh. Gu Yan stood up unhappily. After the two left, Gu Liang looked at Tang Tang, who was eating peaches, and felt a little headache. When you marry in, you are the daughter-in-law of the Gu family, and my mother is your mother-in-law. As a daughter-in-law, do you think it's appropriate to call your mother-in-law an old woman? Tang Tang rolled her eyes, and said disdainfully, she still called me a little bitch. She is really old, and I'm not mean, so I think I've been wronged by scolding me. Gu Liang. Bear with it. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1445. The ideal wife is a perfect woman who is beautiful, elegant, intelligent, and both internal and external. Although the conditions were relaxed because she was anxious to have a child, the married one, sitting cross-legged, without changing pajamas, eating a peach so that his face was wet with juice. Gu Liang was silent for a long time, and asked her, my mother, and my brother, how do you know about it? Tang Tang spat out a peach pit and said proudly, humph, why should I tell you? Gu Liang. Endure again. Thinking about the relationship between him and her, it was nothing more than hoping that she would get rid of the voodoo, so Gu Liang went straight to the point and asked her, when will the treatment start? After Tang Tang finished eating the peaches, she smacked her lips and said, I was so angry just now, I didn't eat enough, I'm so hungry. Gu Liang glanced in the direction of the restaurant, there were still bowls and chopsticks on the table. He asked the servants to reheat the meals, added several new dishes, and put desserts and fruits on the table. Tang Tang smiled when she saw it, and happily ate. While she was eating, Gu Liang called the servant and asked what happened at home today. The servant did not dare to hide anything, and explained everything clearly. In fact, it was nothing serious, but when Mother Gu came, she found that her daughter-in-law didn't wake up until noon. She was a little dissatisfied, and then when she was eating, she saw Tang Tang's indecent appearance, so she babbled a few words. Gu's mother insisted on her identity, and the derogatory sarcasm in her words was very subtle. Tang Tang might not understand it, but after a long time of nagging, Tang Tang became very impatient. At that time, as soon as she slapped the table, she scolded, stinky old woman, you are done, it's not over. Why don't people eat? Gu's mother has pampered her for so many years, and everyone is fawning on her, but the married daughter-in-law scolds her as an old woman to her face. She is mad. Blind words blurted out. You little bitch. How dare you? You old bitch. Ah, you, ah. Mother Gu clutched her chest, almost fainting. He couldn't scold Tang Tang, so he asked Gu Yan to call Gu Liang, wanting to ask his son to come back and find a place for him. So the series of situations just happened. Gu Liang was silent again after listening. He found that after he got married, he often fell into silence. Tang Tang's dining appearance, if required by the standards of a famous Shiyuan, is indeed very indecent, no wonder Gu's mother would criticize it. The chopsticks are used in a mess, the soup spoon makes a crisp sound from time to time in the bowl, and the calf is still dangling back and forth under the chair. As for the appearance of eating, it is even more casual. Picking and choosing the meal, eating for nearly an hour, Gu Liang bet all his self-cultivation and demeanor as patience, endured until Tang Tang finished eating, and said again, the voodoo on my arm. Tang Tang covered her stomach, frowned and said, I'm full, my stomach hurts. Gu Liang. Tolerance, I really can't bear it. Gu Liang stood up abruptly, and the chair was pushed out loudly. He stared coldly at Tang Tang across the table, then strode away with a sullen face, and went to the study without saying a word. I lit a cigarette in the study, and after I finished smoking, I still felt restless, so I lit another one. Thinking that she was 12 years younger than him, young and immature, he really didn't need to be as fussy as her. Maybe it was because the thing on his arm was too wicked, which made him have a worse temper recently, and he was always angry. Gu Liang calmed down in the study for a while, feeling a little calmer, and felt that he should have a good talk with her. The servant knocked lightly on the door outside, and said hesitantly, "Sir, madam, seems a little uncomfortable." Hearing this, Gu Liang sighed, "Go and call Dr. Zhang." Okay. Gu Liang came to the restaurant again. Tang Tang was still sitting on the seat, she was covering her belly, her face was resting on the dining table, her eyes were full of tears, she looked miserable. Gu Liang looked pitifully, sighed again, and asked her, "Does it really hurt your stomach?" Tang Tang's tears were rolling in the sockets of her eyes, rolling and rolling, her eyelashes trembled, and the tears fell down. She said in a small voice, "It hurts." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1446. Gu Liang said, "Go upstairs and rest, the doctor will be here in a while." Tang Tang wept silently, neither looking at him nor paying attention to him. Gu Liang had no choice but to persuade her patiently, "Don't cry, you are in this posture, and there is no way to check it when the doctor comes." Tang Tang closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face, and said, "My stomach hurts, I can't walk." Gu Liang. Why do I have a scalp tingling irritability? He has been cultivating himself for so many years, and this kind of violent feeling is really long lost. Gu Liang thought silently, and said, "I'll take you back to your room." Tang Tang looked up at him, with doubts in her tear-filled eyes, "Don't you hate me?" Gu Liang smiled. Quite self-aware. "Did I ever say I hate you?" he asked with a smile. Tang Tang said, "You attacked me just now, and you made such a loud noise with the chair. If it wasn't because I can help you cure your illness, you would have thrown me out a long time ago. I'm not stupid for such an obvious thing." Gu Liang. Well, not only is he self-aware, but he also holds a grudge. Never mind. What is there to care about with the little girl? Gu Liang shook his head helplessly, picked Tang Tang up, and went upstairs to his room. Her body was soft, and when she got into his arms, she took the initiative to hug his neck, and looked around curiously, as if she felt fresh. "I can't see that you are in good health at your age," Tang Tang said. Gu Liang's steps faltered, took a deep breath, and continued to go up the stairs. "Hold on tight, don't fall on me," Tang Tang said again. Gu Liang ignored her. But Tang Tang seemed to have opened up the chatter box, and stopped crying, chattering endlessly, "Why don't you talk? Are you worried about your arm? Don't worry, you are very lucky to meet me, otherwise you will be sucked dry by it, huh? I found out that you are actually very handsome. It would be a pity if you were really sucked dry, although your mother scolded me today, I will not blame you, I know it has nothing to do with you, I won't stop treating you because of her, I'm very sensible, right? You have to be reasonable, I understand." Gu Liang sighed silently in his heart. After the doctor came, he gave Tang Tang a simple examination, and said there was nothing serious, prescribed a bottle of stomach medicine, and told him to avoid raw, cold, and spicy food. Tang Tang took the medicine and lay down on the bed, curled up into a ball, silently like a sick cat that is cowardly and bereaved. The doctor said with a smile, "It takes a while for the medicine to take effect. If it is really uncomfortable, you can massage the abdomen in a clockwise direction first, and it will relieve you." Gu Liang nodded slightly, and sent someone to send the doctor back. When he returned to the room, he heard Tang Tang asking him weakly, "What does clockwise mean?" Gu Liang sighed, did not speak, lay down on the bed and dragged her into his arms, pressed one hand on her abdomen, and began to rub her belly. Kneading in a circle clockwise makes her drowsy. Gu Liang felt that it was almost done. Just when she stopped, she heard her soft voice say, "Don't stop, it's so comfortable." Gu Liang didn't even bother to sigh. He closed his eyes and continued to rub Tang Tang's belly gently. After rubbing like this for a while, he felt that the girl in his arms was breathing slowly, probably falling asleep. Just about to let go of her, she heard her whispering softly, "Muzening, you don't support me anymore." The voice was soft, Gu Liang could only hear the second half clearly. "What, don't support me anymore?" He didn't take it seriously, presumably it should be an ex-boyfriend or something. Today's girls are young, but they all have a rich love history, nothing surprising. Gu Liang covered Tang Tang with a blanket, drew the curtains, and the light in the room became dim. He sat on the edge of the bed, unbuttoned and took off his shirt, looked down at the intertwined black lines on the skin of his right arm. They stretched out like branches, and seemed to grow up a little more recently, almost reaching his shoulders. This thing, can she really be cured? In the past 2 days, I've been chasing a fast-moving article, a new one. When I read it, I almost died of laughter. I wanted to push it for the author, but she refused, saying that my writing was too bad, and no one would read it. Ha 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 ha. If you like the theme of fast time travel, let's slap your face together. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1447. Half asleep, half awake, vaguely feeling the pressure. There is a soft body covering him, slowly rising and falling with the rhythm of breathing, and within his reach, is the loose and smooth long hair. Although he regained consciousness, he didn't open his eyes. He couldn't help but wonder if she was courting him. Young men and women are always greedy for sex, and they never care about the time and place when they indulge. It's just like this, is it really appropriate? Gu Liang half opened his eyes, and in the dim light, he saw Tang Tang laying on his chest, with his fingers wrapped around his tender red lips, in an ambiguous and provocative gesture. He could feel the wetness in her mouth, the soft tip of her tongue swept over her fingertips. It was warm and wet, and she sucked gently from time to time. And her expression was lazy, sleepy, and awake, like a lazy cat, lying on the owner's body and licking again and again, begging for love. If the young man saw the scene in front of him, his blood would already be racing. Gu Liang narrowed his eyes and looked at Tang Tang with great interest. What's wrong? Is it a whim to fulfill the couple's obligations, or is sleepwalking using him as a drinking straw? If it was really a seduction, he had to admit that she succeeded. Misty eyes with a slightly drunken look, like a lost girl who seduces and commits crimes. This metaphor seems a little inappropriate, but now he does have the desire to bully. At this time, Tang Tang spit out that finger lightly, breathing a little for some reason. Her voice was soft and hoarse at night. Are you awake? Gu Liang hugged her waist, turned over and pressed her down, kneading her body unbearably, bowed his head and was about to kiss her, when his arm suddenly hurt. What? Gu Liang took a sharp breath, hugged his arms tightly and fell to the side of the bed. His entire right arm was convulsed due to the severe pain. The pain came unexpectedly, and in just a few seconds, his forehead was already dripping with sweat. This feeling, it's like all the blood vessels in the arm are peeled off from the flesh and blood, wanting to rush out of the skin. They are moving. Those black, vine-like black threads, they are trembling. It's like having life. Gu Liang panted and asked her, what did you do? Tang Tang lay on his side on the bed, still looking lazy. I'm helping you eat it. Eat it. Gu Liang gritted his teeth and tightly grasped his twitching right arm. The strange pain almost made him unable to think. You will feel pain because it almost occupies your entire arm, and when it hurts, you will naturally feel pain. She said slowly, her voice was very soft, "Don't worry, wait until I eat a few more times, it will get weak, slowly, when it hurts, it won't affect you anymore." The voice dragged on longer and softer, finally, she closed her eyes and fell asleep. He was still suffering from severe pain, but she had already fallen into a sweet dreamland. Gu Liang smiled wryly, and glanced sideways at the electronic clock on the bedside table. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. What an annoying goblin, didn't tell him in advance to make all the preparations, so casually disturbing people's dreams, let him live in pain for half the night. Fortunately, although the pain was intense at the onset, it gradually decreased. After suffering for about 40 minutes, the pain finally disappeared, and Gu Liang's whole body was soaked and sweating profusely. Mark. Gu Liang glanced at the sleeping Tang Tang, shook his head helplessly, got up and went to the bathroom. After rinsing, he looked at himself in the mirror. The linear black branches on the arms are about a quarter missing. They used to reach the shoulders, but now they only reach the crook of the arms. However, they were originally stationary, but now they are faintly moving. Like the aquatic plants at the bottom of the lake, gently rippling with the water waves, it's so weird that you can't help but get goosebumps. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1448. Gu Liang sighed lightly. He couldn't figure out why he was stained with this dirty thing. The purpose of going abroad is to discuss business. Sometimes, in order to entertain him, the other party will arrange to visit some local places of interest, or art exhibition halls, but everyone else has gone to those places, so why is he the only one who is recruited? Some mages also wondered if someone had tricked him through food. However, playing Gu usually makes the other party suffer so much pain that they would die of torture, but the thing that grows on Gu Liang's body is neither painful nor itchy. Can't think of a clue. Returning to the bedroom after taking a bath, the sky outside was already bright. Gu Liang lay back on the bed and looked at the little wife who was sleeping soundly beside her. The personality is indeed a bit annoying, but I still have to thank her. He pushed back the hair from her face, and lightly touched her soft cheek with his fingers. He felt a little heavy while feeling relaxed, retracted his hand, and fell asleep with his eyes closed. Gu Liang didn't sleep well that night. Anyone who gets sexually aroused at night and breaks out in a cold sweat from the pain will probably not sleep well. The next day he got up half an hour later than usual, got up to wash up, and then went downstairs to have breakfast. Tang Tang also rubbed her sleepy eyes and went downstairs, seeing his well-dressed appearance, asked, "Are you going out?" "Well, go to the company," Gu Liang said. "I'm going to." Tang Tang raised his head, with breadcrumbs on his face. Gu Liang wiped the corners of his mouth slowly and said, "I'm going to work in the company. What are you going to do?" She was confident, "I'm bored at home, I'm going to the company to play." Gu Liang took another tissue to wipe off the scum from the corners of her mouth. "The company is a place to do business, there is nothing interesting, you can stay at home and watch cartoons." Tang Tang was not happy. "You won't let me go, I will go anyway." Gu Liang. Unless his brain is flooded, how could he agree to take this product to the company? Now at home, she dares to point at her mother-in-law's nose and scold. If she goes to the company, who can guarantee that nothing will happen? In the past, the women he got along with were all the type who understood winks and knew how to advance and retreat. People like Tang Tang really gave him a headache. Coincidentally, Gu Yan suddenly ran over early in the morning, went to the dining table and sat down, and asked Gu Liang bluntly, "Brother, you can't always stop my credit card. I'm already in my 20s, I also want to face, okay?" "Mom told me to stop," Gu Liang replied calmly. She was also doing it for your own good, and she was afraid that you would spend money outside. Brother, my dear brother. Help, can you restore it? Isn't stopping my card equivalent to killing half my life? Don't you have another card? You are working in the company now, so you should be paid every month. Elder brother. Have you run out of wages? Brother. Gu Liang smiled, glanced at Tang Tang at the side, and said, how about this, your sister-in-law is bored at home, you take her out for a stroll, and when I come back, I will give you a new card. Gu Yan was taken aback when he heard the words, thinking that this is inappropriate, right? Sister-in-law and uncle, very taboo. But Gu Liang didn't give him room to discuss, straightened his tie, and left the house surrounded by the driver and bodyguards. A man and a woman were left sitting at the dining table, staring wide-eyed. Gu Liang is in a good mood today. The thing on his arm has troubled him for almost a year. Now that he finally has a solution, he is naturally much more relaxed. It's just that the family made him a little worried, afraid that Gu Yan might not be able to deal with her, and he would call for help when the time came. Surprisingly, his phone was quiet all day. It seems that his ignorant younger brother is very good at coaxing girls. After the meeting in the afternoon, Gu Liang returned home and saw Gu Yan lying on the sofa in the living room playing with his mobile phone. He glanced around but did not see Tang Tang. Where's your sister-in-law? He asked. When Gu Yan heard the voice, he immediately sat up with a grunt, huh, oh, my sister-in-law is upstairs. Gu Liang nodded and was about to go up, but Gu Yan grabbed him and asked in a low voice, brother, sister-in-law, is there something wrong? He pointed to his head. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1449. Today, after Gu Yan received the mission from his elder brother, he took out his mobile phone to search for interesting places in Xinjiang City, and then asked his sister-in-law to pick them. As a result, Tang Tang saw that his typing was interesting, so he insisted on learning how to type. Gu Yan had no choice but to use his tablet to download a software for practicing pinyin typing, but Tang Tang didn't know pinyin, so he downloaded a software for learning pinyin. Tang Tang actually likes it very much, learning it with great joy. Can you imagine? A man in his 20s, following the teaching voice in the software to read pinyin one by one, Gu Yan was totally stunned. At first he thought his sister-in-law was teasing him, but the younger sister-in-law studied hard until noon, and then she stopped, and when she finished eating, she went upstairs with the computer in her arms, and plunged into the ocean of knowledge again. Second young Master Gu was really frightened. He wanted to tell Gu Liang, but if he didn't see this kind of thing with his own eyes, he might not be able to appreciate the shock. Gu Yan carefully led his brother to the door of the bedroom, and said in a low voice, brother, I personally don't have any objections to my sister-in-law, but I think that what mom said may be right, this kind of woman, you should get a divorce quickly. Gu Liang's expression was still calm and deep, and he said, go back, I will issue a credit card for you later. Gu Yan got the right words and quickly slipped away. Gu Liang stood outside the door for a while, then opened the door and entered. Tang Tang was nestling on the bed with her tablet in her arms, staring at the screen seriously with her small face. When she heard the voice, she raised her eyes to look at Gu Liang, then quickly retracted her eyes and continued to study. Gu Liang remained calm, took off his suit, casually hung it on the camphorwood vertical hanger, and walked over to look at her flat screen. At this time, she is not learning pinyin, but doing math problems, with animation special effects. She downloaded 2 or 3 pages of apps on the tablet, all of which are educational applications, such as Duo literacy, interesting science, baby English, Tian Tian math, quick look-up dictionary and so on. Gu Liang roughly estimated in his heart that the applicable age group of these apps should be 6-12 years old. As a parent, it must be a relief to see that children are not addicted to cartoons and are studying hard. But as a husband, this thing is terrible. Tang Tang. Gu Liang called her name. Huh, she looked up. This is a beautiful face, youthful and immature, the fair skin is slightly moist pink, the black pupils are clear and bright, and the lips are fresh vermilion. What's the matter? There was doubt in her eyes. Gu Liang was silent for a moment, then asked her, Tang Tang, who are you? She looked puzzled. I'm Tang Tang, didn't I tell you already? Tang Tang. Gu Liang thought about the name silently, and he was 80% sure in his heart that this was not Ruan Zixuan's nickname, nor was she Ruan Zixuan. The Ruan family sisters all graduated from prestigious schools, so they are not obsessed with elementary school math problems, so who is she? Could it be that the dual personality, because of being stimulated, defeated the main personality and occupied this body? This matter was so unusual. Gu Liang was deep in thought, looking at Tang Tang who was staring at the screen. He hesitated to speak. Tang Tang. What's the matter? She raised her head again, pouted and frowned, obviously displeased with his interruptions. Gu Liang. After thinking for a while, he said, don't get too close to the screen, you will be short-sighted. New. At night, Tang Tang climbed into bed after taking a shower, and shook Gu Liang's face with water. Gu Liang pulled her back to the bathroom, took the hairdryer and tried to dry her hair, but she thought the sound was too loud, so she didn't want to curse, so he could only temporarily wrap her wet hair with a hair-drying cap. Back on the bed again, she curled up into a ball as usual. Gu Liang had some thoughts in his mind today, so he deliberately stayed away from her. But after a while she arched into his arms. Gu Liang was quite helpless, sighed inwardly, and retreated to the edge of the bed. She arches, he retreats. She arched again, and he retreated again. She continued to arch, he. Puff. Tang Tang woke up startled, and stared at Gu Liang under the bed. Scare me, can you sleep well? Don't disturb others' rest. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1450. Gu Liang stood up silently while supporting his waist, and left the room without saying a word. There is also a guest room at home, where the servants can take a rest after tidying up temporarily. It is more comfortable to sleep when no one is crowded, but my waist hurts. He thought, he might be really old, but he just fell and still had a dull pain the next day. After arriving at the company, he asked his secretary to notify Dr. Zhang to come. Dr. Zhang put 2 plasters on his waist, and said with a smile, Mr. Gu, although you are newly married, you should be more restrained. Gu Liang. I really want to explain, but after thinking about it, it seems that being pushed out of bed by my wife is not very glamorous, forget it. At this time, Tongwu walked in from the outside. Knowing that the two of them had something to discuss, Dr. Zhang packed up the medicine box, bowed respectfully, and left the office. Tongwu gently placed a file bag on the desk. The folder is very thick, and it contains Ruan Zixuan's information, what school she went to, what friends she made, and what specialty she learned. As long as it can be found, it is all in the information. Gu Liang flipped through it and knew what he was looking for was not these. He put the information back and said to Tongwu, go and check another person, her name is Tang Tang, a girl with a low education level, the family may have something to do with exorcism. Do you have a last name? Uncertain. Tongwu asked again, how old are you? Gu Liang frowned, a little hesitant. In his heart, he really didn't want to admit that he married a brat. 6, between 6 and 20 years old, Gu Liang said. Tongwu. Seeing that Tongwu didn't respond, Gu Liang frowned at him. What are you doing in a daze? Tongwu hesitated and said, Master, this age range is a bit big. Gu Liang pressed his forehead and sighed, let's try to check first. After Tang Tang entered the study mode, Gu Liang spent a period of time peacefully. She doesn't care about anyone when she studies. Apart from eating and sleeping every day, she just studies with her tablet computer. However, I didn't help him to heal anymore. Gu Liang thought it might be because they slept in separate rooms, and the two of them seldom saw each other from morning to night, so she forgot about it. Sometimes he would look through her tablet curiously and find some changes in the app software, adding physics master, potato biology, virtual chemistry laboratory and so on. Has this advanced to middle school? Since then, Gu Liang has taken his heart and checked Tang Tang's tablet computer every few days. After a while, he found that this product was outrageously biased. Language, geography, and history are shit-like existences, but mathematics, physics and chemistry have made amazing progress, especially physics. Gu Liang discovered the browsing history she left in the online video course of quantum mechanics. This seems to be a course only available in college physics, right? Was it really not an accidental mistake? But she still paid for this course, and it was automatically deducted from Guyan's account. Guyan was overly frightened and called him, and asked, Brother, what happened to my sister-in-law? She asked me whether the quantum mechanical wave function is real, or a tool used by scientists to calculate, and also asked me how the double-slit diffraction of photons came about. At this time, Gu Liang was having dinner with his wife. He glanced at Tang Tang who was opposite him, and hung up the phone silently. Tang Tang is depressed today and has no appetite. Gu Liang coughed lightly and asked, have you called Guyan? Tang Tang let out a lazy yes. He always looks at me with a mentally retarded look, so I'll scare him. Gu Liang. After a moment of silence, he glanced at the plate in front of Tang Tang. The food barely moved. Isn't it to your liking? The steak seems old, he asked. Tang Tang sighed, with a melancholy expression on his face. I obviously know a lot of characters, but there are still a lot of characters on the tombstone that I don't know. Alas, I can't figure it out. Holding a knife and fork, Gu Liang cut the steak gracefully. When she heard her complain, she smiled and said, could it be because of the traditional characters? Traditional characters? Tang Tang was stunned, and stared at him with wide eyes. The characters are still divided into traditional characters.